Hello everyone and welcome to BISP Solutions. This is CS Anjana Mishra working as the lead functional consultant at BISP Solutions. BISP Solutions is a tech company providing technological solutions across the globe. We'll be looking at blanket purchase orders in this session into the Oracle NetSuite application. So we'll be taking up what is a blanket purchase order, then what is the difference between the purchase contract and a blanket purchase order. How do we enable and set up the blanket purchase order feature into the NetSuite application? And then we'll be taking up a short case study on a blanket purchase order. How do we enter it into the system and how do we create or release a purchase order from the existing blanket purchase orders? So before moving on to the NetSuite application, let us just understand what is a blanket purchase order. BPO or the blanket purchase order is a long-term agreement between any organization and the supplier to deliver goods and services with a set price on a recurring basis over a specified time period. So if your business makes multiple payments for the same goods and services, issuing a blanket purchase order with the details such as pricing and delivery schedules reduces the time that is spent and processing delays. Now, blanket purchase orders work wonders for simplifying the buying process for both the parties, the buyers as well as the suppliers. On one hand, when it reduces the cost and increases the purchasing power of the buyer. On the other hand, for the suppliers, it is easier for them to submit multiple invoices citing the same blanket purchase order number, which saves their time and reconciling time also. So all in all, if I say a blanket purchase order, with the help of blanket purchase order, any organization can improve the buyer's efficiency and accuracy and potentially reduce the procurement spending by using these blanket purchase orders. Blanket purchase orders define a predetermined price for a set quantity of items you will buy from a vendor during a set time period. Blanket purchase order specifies the items, pricing, quantity, terms, and effective time period. Now, these are some of the items that are specified into the blanket purchase order. Moving on, most of the people are confused between a purchase contract and a blanket purchase order. A blanket purchase order is just a purchase order document that any buyer sends to the seller requesting certain inventory item or the products. Now, when the seller accepts this document, then it becomes a legally binding contract both on the buyer and the seller. But a purchase contract is a more defined document as it is a legally binding agreement and contract from the starting that sets agreed upon prices, and there are certain other terms and conditions also attached to it which both the parties agree to. So in short, purchase orders become contracts once the vendor accepts them, but not every contract is a purchase order. So this is what a blanket purchase order and a purchase contract, here it is defined. How do we differentiate it? So moving on to the NetSuite application, let's move on to the NetSuite application and see how do we set it up into the NetSuite application. After the blanket purchase order, once you have entered the blanket purchase order into the NetSuite application, you can use the same blanket purchase order to create or release any new orders for the agreed upon items. So when orders originate from the blanket purchase order, any delivery schedule released by the buyer that falls within the effective dates of the blanket purchase order uses the contracted pricing and terms. So this is how my blanket purchase orders into the Oracle NetSuite application is going to help me in my organization and the process flow of working. So setting up the blanket purchase orders into the NetSuite application, we'll go to setup, company, enable features. On the transaction subtab, here is the blanket purchase order option. You will have to check this box so that you can create and track the BPOs into your NetSuite application. So here it is already checked. Once you have checked the box, you can save it. Also, you can choose whether or not to allow expenses to be associated on blanket purchase orders. Like for example, You might be contracting an associated service such as a number of hours of consulting or maintenance on capital equipments. Then you can specify that over the time period of the blanket purchase order, you plan to spend a set amount on a certain account and then pre-schedule the expenditure. In this way, you can budget for the expenses at a set amount per month or per week. So in order to set the accounting preferences, set up accounting preferences over here into the order management sub tab. In purchasing, you can select the allow expenses on purchases. So this is going to help you to set the expenses on the blanket purchase orders. Now, once you have checked this box also, you can save it. Now, the this preference of setting the expenses on the purchase order or not, this is totally optional for various organizations. If you want, you can create expenses apart from the items transaction, or you can include it into the same bill only. Now, let us look at a case study. 10 purchase orders are placed with Pandora. This is one of the vendors every month for an inventory item, and it was observed that usually the rate differ due to the market fluctuations and the terms of payments. So usually there was a rate difference that used to occur between different purchase orders. Hence, it was viewed that it is better for us to consolidate these purchases into a single blanket purchase order and order one PO for the entire 10 months. So instead of issuing 10 purchase orders per month for 10 months, that is 100 purchase orders, we issued a single blanket purchase order and then released purchase orders from that blanket purchase order only. What it had was the exchange rates were pre-decided, the terms of payments were pre-decided, so there wasn't any rates fluctuation into our inventory items. So it was easier for us. We didn't had to judge for the profits and losses much, because if the purchase orders were placed differently due to the rate exchanges, market fluctuation, different terms of payments set every time when a new purchase order was placed, there was differences into the rate of the same item. So let us create this into the NetSuite application. So into transaction, purchases, enter blanket purchase order. I'm going to enter a single purchase order for the vendor Pandora. So this is my vendor. This date is the date of releasing the purchase order, and this is the start date. When do you want to start this blanket purchase order? That is the starting of the blanket purchase order and the end date of the blanket purchase order. So start date is 1st of November. So there are 10 for the next 10 months. I am placing that purchase order. So November 20, December 20, and then 8 months of 2021. So that is August 2021. So this is the end date. Any memo if you would like to enter, you can. Rest all the information, then important and mandatory information is the only information that I'm entering. Other information you can of course fill it up. Now here, as you can see, when I am releasing a single purchase order, the exchange rate and the terms of payment that I'll be selecting here will be the same. So for the next 10 months, the exchange rate and the terms of payment are not going to change, which in turn is not going to have any differences into the amount of my inventory item. So here I am not attaching any expenses as of now. I am only ordering an item. So the total quantity that I require is 200 in the next 10 months, and rate that has been fixed is 5,000. And here is the schedule. Now a schedule is here you have provided that I would require 200 quantities of that product in the next 10 months. Into the schedule you can provide when are you going to order, how much quantity, in which month, on which date. Now here is the option, how do you want to get the purchase orders, that is different purchase orders that are created from a blanket purchase order. How do you want to create it? At lead time, that is what the time that is selected, the date that you will provide here on that time, or on manually basis. So here I'm selecting that every time a purchase order that will be created, a single purchase order that will be created from this BPO, I would like to create it manually. You can of course select at lead time also. Now the creating a schedule is, that is a total quantity. You can create a schedule as per your own wish, or you can automatically generate a schedule for this item. Now this is how this works. The release frequencies, we had a monthly purchase order, we used to have a monthly purchase order, so I'm selecting the frequency monthly. The start date is of course the date that you have provided. You can change, like on 5th of every month we used to order it, and I'm selecting the 5th of November to the 5th of August 2021. And when you click on auto generate, now this is the schedule that is created over here. This is how a schedule has been created. The total quantity has been bifurcated on over 10 months period. So the quantity 20 units of this product will be ordered every month on the 5th of every month. So on the 5th of every month, 20 units of this particular purchase of this particular item will be placed under a purchase order. So this is how an automatically schedule has been generated. Now there is a trick. You can also do one thing. You can select this manually. The schedule is automatically generated. Let's say you have on the past experiences or on the past trends, you think that in March you do not require so much product. In March the sale of this product is down. You can select over here, change the quantity to 10, and out of your past trends also you see that in the month of June the sale of the product increases. Put those 10 products over here, change the quantity to 30. So the all in all the total quantity remains same. You can make changes also over here, but here I didn't want it to make any change, so I'm automatically regenerating it. Once you have done it, you can click on OK and save it. So a schedule has been created. Now this schedule can be created after you have saved the purchase, a blanket purchase order also. It is not important that you create it as and when you're creating the purchase order, blanket purchase order. You can also set the schedule and create a schedule after you have saved the blanket purchase order also. So this is the schedule that we have created, in which manually a purchase order will be generated every time on the due date. And this schedule, the schedule of what is the date, what is the quantity to be ordered, has been automatically generated. This has been done, and you can also manually create the schedule. Next is my terms of payment. Now the terms of payment that has been set and agreed upon are net 15. This is one of the terms of payment. Rest every amount, rest all the information. If you want, you can fill it up. If you don't, you can leave it also. All the important information has been filled in. And now I'm going to save this blanket purchase order. So as you can see, this blanket purchase order has been saved, and the flag that it is showing is pending active. Now this blanket purchase order number 6 for Pandora has been created. Now let us release a purchase order from this blanket purchase order. So I'll be going to the list, blanket purchase order number 6. I'll click on edit. Here is my schedule. I'm going to click on my schedule. I'm going to click on release and click on OK. And I'm going to save it. So a purchase order will be automatically generated on the date and for the quantity that was specified. As you can see, this is my purchase order that has been automatically created from that blanket purchase order. This is the purchase order that has been created from the blanket purchase order number 6 that we had created for Pandora. And the date, expected receipt date, is the 5th of November 2020. That was given at the time of creating a schedule. So this is the purchase order that is automatically created. Now, similarly, you can create purchase order. Now, since we had selected manual creation of the purchase order, you can create purchase order similarly for the next 9 months also. If you want, you can also select at lead time. So it is automatically going to generate a purchase order on your behalf. You do not have to do it manually. So all of this depends on how do you want to play into the NetSuite application. You want to make it manual efforts, or you want an automatic efforts. It is totally dependent. Had I selected automatic, so it would have generated on 5th of November 2020. Since I had selected manually, so I could manually create it. So this was my blanket purchase order. We can also view it again. Just a moment. Yes. So this was my blanket purchase order. Purchased amount, since we have put up, this was the maximum amount, and we have created a purchase order also from this. So when I view the schedule, it has a purchase order associated with this particular schedule. And similarly, when I'm going to create or release the purchase orders from this blanket purchase order, all the purchase orders that have been released and created from this BPO are going to come over here. So it is easier for me to track also. So by this single blanket purchase order for the next 10 months for this particular vendor, I can track all the activities from just this blanket purchase order number 6. So this is how you create a blanket purchase order into the NetSuite application, and how you can release single purchase orders from that blanket purchase orders. For any queries or questions for this or into the NetSuite application, you can of course get back to us at www.bispsolutions.com. Thank you so much.